Good morning, everyone. Once again, this is Blackforexgroup coming to you with another market analysis video. This morning, we're going to be looking at the USDCHF. But before we get started to break down this Forex pair, we have to state that this video is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice, okay? But we all know why you guys are here. You guys are here to try to find good, credible Forex content to increase your abilities as a trader and to also make a little extra money in these troubling times with goods and gas being so high. Okay. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So, if you've been watching our videos before we break down what's physically happening on the chart from a technical analysis point standpoint, we're going to be talking about the currencies respectively. Okay. Now let's talk about CHF first because if we're going to talk about the USD, we're going to be talking about it almost every video. So you already should have a good idea about how that's operating. Okay. With the CHF, we did have some news come out last night with the Swiss that kept its interest rate at 75%, which it was previously and what they predicted it was going to be. So this is why it is showing some initial strength going into the midpoint of this London session and almost in the pre-openings of the New York session. Okay. But that strength is not really taking the chart anywhere. So we're going to have to see how this plays out because also um, we still have a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt surrounding the European economy due to the Russian-Ukrainian war. But it's starting to be some positive talks happening with that. They're saying that Ukraine and Russia is back at the table, and they're at least talking. So that should also uptake the strength in the major three European currencies, which is the CHF, Euro, and British Pound. Okay. And we're going to have to see what other measures they're going to put in place with the Swiss to see how they're going to handle tackling inflation. That's also that's badly affecting their economy as well. Okay. Now with the USD, we do have a lot of news that's supposed to be coming up around 8:30 around the PMI. Excuse me, I mean after 8:30 with the PMI and prior to let me say that again. We do have a lot of news coming out with the USD around 8:30. We do have some job news coming out. And after 8:30, we have a lot of PMI news coming out. And also around 9 o'clock, the Fed is supposed to do some talking. So those talks can actually start to affect price too. So we're going to have to see how all these things play out at the beginning of the New York trading session. Okay, so we're in a situation where the USD has two routes it can go. If the economic policies and economic measures and increasing interest rate does start to tackle the inflation very effectively and very fast and expeditiously, then we will start to see an increased strength in the USD very, very fast and rapidly. But on what the other side to that is that if the economic measures or policies in place and the increase in interest rate does not start to tackle the inflation effectively or is not handling it in a timely enough fashion, then we will start to see a lot of uncertainties surrounding the US dollar, which will turn to fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And um, then we will start to see the US dollar becomes much weaker than what it currently is. Okay, so now being that said, let's go ahead and break down what's happening with this Forex pair. So as we can see, we're in a consolidation point for about 30 to 45 days plus. Okay, then we did break up out of it, right? Then we started to come down some with some retracement. And this is more so looking like this is a high high, and this is looking like this is a high low. Because every time it's attempting to try to go down at this point, it looks like we're stopping right here, and then we're continuing to go back up. So we may even break a little bit below here to probably this area before we start to turn and go back up again. What's going to really dictate is that all USD news that comes out all the USD news that comes out along with the Fed speech around 9 o'clock. We'll see whether price will push up this way or push towards the long side or push towards the short side. Okay. Now, as of right now, we're looking at this. This is looking like we had a range. We had a break in our range. We established our high high. And we established our high low. We attempted to go back up, started coming back down, attempted to come back up, went back down, attempted to go back up, and we're starting to come down a little bit more. We could get as low as this area here, or even as low as this area here, before price starts to pick back up again and head towards the long side. Okay, because once again, just because the CHF is acting as strong does not mean that this currency is going to be strong for the long haul. This could be an initial strength due to the reaction of its interest rate and the talks, but we're going to have to see how these things are playing out, because if it was actually strong, we would have broke this market structure and started to be down in this area. The fact that we keep pausing here and then pausing here, that's kind of a telltale sign. Eventually, we may creep down just a little bit lower, but we're going to eventually start going up towards the long side. Okay. Now, let's just say all the USD news comes out as negative and kaput, which is very, very bad. And then next thing you know, the Feds is like, look, I'm not doing nothing about this. Then we can start to see fundamental turnover. But it looks like the American government, along with the Federal Reserve, is taking a very active stance on trying to combat inflation, which is not too surprising, being that we're getting close to the midterm elections. A lot of these politicians do not want to get blamed for how the economy is performing, because whether it's their fault, whoever's sitting in the offices is going to be the ones blamed. So it's not too ironic that, we're going to start trying to do something about this before we start to go into the summertime and into the fall, when things are going to start ramping up for senators and congressmen to start to go for elections, and so along with the local officials. Okay. So from a technical analysis standpoint, we could continue to range out at this point here, drop it between these two price points in our high, upper extreme in our range, bounce between these two price points before we start to go here. We could creep down as far as here before we turn over, okay? So we're going to want to see how this plays out and let the chart leave the breadcrumbs that we need before we go ahead and place a position with this, okay? So unless we have a drastic fundamental shift, then start to look for a price turnover. But if we do not have a drastic fundamental shift and then USD news comes out moderately okay or strong, then start to look for eventually price to continue towards the long side. Okay, and we may get as high as here or even here before we start ranging out and going back down again. And once again, we could range out to this area here, go as far as down here before we start to go up towards the long side. Okay. Hope that information was helpful for you guys. Happy trading.